any like target jobs at risk?
I think jobs would be more difficult to replace. This question is very close to my heart, and I came there and I was hit like a brick wall.
The fact that you've worked with McKinsey, Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, fast, scale fast.
Welcome to this special episode, which marks the official launch of Peak. Today we are diving into one of the most misunderstood parts of modern AI, which is data. So not focusing too much on algorithms, hardware, or buzzwords, but this pure raw data. And to help us break this open, we have someone who has spent his entire career navigating the messy world between technology, operations, innovations, etc. Anders, CEO and founder of Redpine AI.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to say a little bit about Redpine to the audience. So Redpine is focused on solving one of the biggest challenges in AI, which is getting access to reliable, high-quality data. And the path that brought Anders to this work is genuinely interesting. And he started as an early entrepreneur, then spent years in China running large-scale operations, and he moved into fintech as well.
That's right.
And eventually returned to building a company that's shaped around licensed, trustworthy data.
Yeah.
So, Anders, welcome to Peak Podcast.
Thanks a lot. My great honor to host this podcast.
Honored to have you here. I think we can begin with something about yourself. Like,
Sure.
Other than the title of founder of Redpine AI, who exactly are you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, brief background. I set out to become a professional ice hockey player at a young age. That didn't happen. So I became a computer guy. I went all in on computers in my teens. Started making websites and programming and playing computer games and so forth. So that was, the big next passion field for me. It led me into high school, a computer high school, where we did programming as well as math and sort of natural studies. And that was a very important formative chapter for me, really trying to understand computers better and interacting with computers and building things as well. This was the late part of the 1990s where, the dot-com company started to happen, internet was a new thing, and so did we build a company. So that's when I built my first company. And I think that still is a seed that sort of planted the interest of entrepreneurship for me. That still to this day sort of remains very, very true. Right now I built the company Redpine. We're at the early stage of this company, but it's looking very exciting. I have 2 kids, wife, and love sports, and I'm still Anders as I was way back. But a lot of things have happened since I spend my time at the school.
Are you still in touch with ice hockey, or?
Yeah, I love ice hockey and sports for that sake. And even though I don't play that much, I do other sports.
You mentioned something about having your own company at an early age.
Yes.
How exactly did that influence your life from now what you have become?
Yeah, sure. So I think looking back as an entrepreneur, you solve problems. The problem that I saw being a student of entrepreneurship as well as IT and tech, we saw that with the internet, there's all of a sudden new tools to distribute and spread knowledge that weren't possible before. So this was end of the 90s, and we felt as students we're producing knowledge in a sense in the school, as you do. And what if we can spread this to other parts of the world and other people who need to partake this data? So we built a platform for doing that. So anyone can be a publisher of anything, basically. That was the simple but interesting idea that we built. And over a couple of years, this became quite a well-used resource for students. It was called Mimersbrunn, which was the source of knowledge in the Nordic mythology. That's what the name means. And a lot of people were using this website in school. So we also started then going around the country, talking to teachers as well as students on how to use internet as a tool for your studies. So that was our business, and we had advertising revenue, and we had knowledge sharing revenue from conferences and so forth, and things were looking quite good. And I was still a student, and then I went into business school, SSE, to continue understanding how to run that company better. Then the dot-com bubble crashed. This was 2001, and many internet businesses struggled. We hadn't fundraised any capital, so we were just bootstrapping the company, meaning we worked with our own time as the only sort of investment. So it's fine. We continued running the company, and a few years later, I were in conversation with a classmate here at SSE who wanted to buy our company from us. So we decided to complete that and go full circle. So that was an interesting chapter, as the first one as an entrepreneur. And yeah.
Do you think there's like a very specific risk that you've taken that has gotten you to where you are today?
Yeah, I think many things have made me realize that you have to take risk to enjoy rewards as well. I think that's a kind of lesson 101 of any business program, and I've seen that as well. I think I often try and think what's the worst thing that can happen, and the answer to that is seldom really terrible, and I think you just have to go for it. And yeah, I think that's been one of my guiding stars through my life and my career.
So you would say that the fear of like not being successful, your solution to that was just doing it, just facing your fears and then working towards it.
Well, my first company I built, I wasn't thinking about the fear of being successful or not. It was just a problem to solve. We had the sheer passion of building a tool that can be used by thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people, which it eventually became. But we didn't think about, fear of not becoming successful or not. We just built what needed to be built. That was the driving force, to solve a problem and to enjoy the building and have fun. I think, looking back, we should have done many things different. We should have focused globally from day one. We should have done a couple of things different, maybe quit our school and just focus on the company instead. So we could have done things differently for sure. But now today, I think entrepreneurs have learned that they should start early, they should build and never look back.
So do you think as like working in a group, like you're a co-founder of Redpine, right?
Yeah.
So working in a group, do you think that has led you to somewhere where you couldn't have reached alone?
For sure. I mean, definitely. Redpine is a result, early days, but it's a result of the team that is sort of formed Redpine. So definitely could not have done this myself.
Wait, so how exactly did you find your co-founders? Was it from the same school or like maybe from a work trip?
Yeah, and in between, jumping a bit to my previous job that I had, I was a VC, venture capital investor for a company called Antler, and that I also started in the Nordics 2018, so many years ago. And we helped co-founders, build solid teams. So I think we've seen hundreds of teams form as a result of that work over many years. So, we learned playbook, how to form a team, what do, what not to do when building a solid team. And I think having a diverse set of skills on the co-founding team is very key, very key. Having 2 or 3 co-founders in total is also a good number to start with. And to really align in the value set in the founding team, making sure that the core values of the founders are relatively aligned. You don't have to be perfect, but at least you're doing this for the right reasons, you have a long-term horizon, you're willing to put in the work necessary to make this successful as much as you can.
That's a very interesting answer. You said you worked it was Antler, right? When you worked as a venture partner?
Venture capital, general partner.
You're also involved in some of like the early portfolio fundings for like Lovable, right?
Yeah.
So how is that experience? Because now Lovable has grown, it's grown to a new milestone.
Yes.
So how does that feel?
Very exciting. I mean, we were fortunate to be able to invest a small ticket into Lovable in one of their earlier rounds, which was great. We met with Anton before that investment and his early team as well. It was clear that they were onto something super interesting. Of course, the product and the company has evolved a few times. Since then, it was called the GPT Engineer when they pitched it to us, and we invested as much as we could at the time. And really happy to see for them and for the ecosystem what they have done since then. So, yeah, that was a good example. But I mean, it just shows that sheer passion and never look back and working super hard can work extremely well, which they're a good example of. And I think they're also a good role model company for many aspiring entrepreneurs, and I think that's super meaningful for what they do.
Yeah.
So is there like a specific way, do you think, that makes Redpine different from any other competitive firm that you have?
Redpine versus competitors. So let me first maybe say a few words what Redpine is and what we do for the listeners and the audience of this podcast. So Redpine, as you alluded in the beginning, we are the knowledge layer for AI agents. So we do provide proprietary high quality data for AI agents, for AI applications, and AI models. That's what we do. And AI so far, this is 2025, at the end of 2025, have been trained on big amounts of data, mainly internet data, about 20 to 30 trillion tokens of data. A token is about a word. And that's a lot of data from many different sources, including Reddit, Wikipedia, YouTube, and other things, with or without permission. So that's that. But outside the public internet, there's many times that amount available, but not for training. So Redpine unlocks the most high quality data from outside the public internet and makes this available for the right type of AI use. That's our business model. Because to trust AI, we all need trustworthy AI that doesn't hallucinate, that provides the right answers on time. Then we must tap into the best possible data to do that. I think that's a logical conclusion. In order to unlock that data, we need to work with the data owners and give them the incentives to share that data to AI companies. And that's where Redpine comes in.
Okay.
So I think we, to your question about differentiation, how are we different? We've seen this problem is still very early on this growth for us and for the AI industry itself. So I think we see this problem from pattern recognition. If we take another company that came out of Stockholm 15, 20 years ago, Spotify, we know very well. So I went to the same high school as Daniel Ek, the founder.
Oh, that's really
He
interesting.
was also studying IT in the high school I was at, and we were all a couple of hundred students programming, learning IT and so forth. And Spotify understood that the access model of music was changing at the time as well. People started using downloading tools, sometimes unlawfully, sites like Pirate Bay and Napster and so forth. And I think the team there and Daniel realized that this is not sustainable for the industry of music, right? But there must be a better way to access that type of data, that type of media, which they built brilliantly and have earned the success, of course. Similar to that, we see now that the access model for data is changing. Things like books, academic journals, they exist and the data is fantastic. But people are going to access data in new ways going forward. So we need to unlock that data in the similar way that Spotify did for music. So we need to unlock this data for AI use. So there are some similarities between how we have pattern recognized how the AI industry is changing, how to access data in the next phases to come. So I think we've been inspired by and learned by that transition, and that sort of helped us shape how we think about data for Redpine.
Yeah. It's coming from a more customer perspective.
Yeah.
AI is something where a lot of people have different doubts, different curiosities, because it's still not super clear, right? And you yourself working in this industry.
Yeah.
When people, because there are issues with a lot of ethics and whether you can trust the data or whether you can trust AI. How does it feel when you're working in AI and you're maybe listening around that people are not fully convinced about the AI's potential, perhaps?
Yeah, that's why we exist, to bring trust to AI, to make sure that AI does not hallucinate by providing better data, but also to providing sources, the right sources. Where does a certain piece of data come from? To say this is the article, this is the book, this is the original source, so that whoever's using the AI can go back and look at the source and understand and trust that this is a reliable piece of information. Who is the source? Where is it coming from? And what's the intent of the organization or person producing this data? I think that's never been as important as with the advent of AI. So that's part of the value we bring, so that people can use AI. I personally believe AI has so much potential to disrupt and to benefit a whole range of industries: drug discovery, education sector, financial sector, manufacturing, robotics, and so forth. However, the trust must be there, and the hallucinations must be close to zero. So if there's no trust, it will not reach the adoption it deserves and can benefit us as people.
Another question, a little bit off track, but on AI. How do you think AI should be incorporated into the education system now? Because a lot of schools are against AI because they think students might directly copy paste essays or whatever. But also on the other hand, AI is a really powerful tool that can give you really, really good answers as well, and really good room for improvement. So what do you think should really work in schools?
Sure. This question is very close to my heart and to where I spent a big part of my working life. And even the company I started, Mimersbrunn, back in the days when I was a teenager, we allowed people to use data on the internet. And you can imagine the reaction from the teachers in the beginning when things like reviews or essays and novels were widely available freely on the internet, with the consent of the author. So, maybe some people use that to plagiarize essays. So some teachers had the same kind of alarming thoughts. Oh, why don't we take down the internet? Why don't we take down this website? Now I think we come to realize that internet is there. It's not going to disappear. How can we utilize internet as a super force to supercharge education by providing, real-time access to all sorts of knowledge, digital course books, testing, and so forth. That's sort of internet. Same problem that we see now with AI. Now we have AI. Same kind of questions are raised. How can we prevent plagiarism and automatic essay production and so forth, and how can we make sure people actually learn? So that sort of preventive rhetorics is still the same as it was 20 years ago when AI came, or when internet came. So that's I recognize the alarm bells very loud and clear. To me, I think we need to keep that in mind. We should not be naive about it, but at the same time, we should really focus on the benefits. Yeah. We should make sure that AI can really democratize and disrupt education in a very positive way. And I think there are few sectors that will benefit so much from AI than education. I really think so. Just the adaptiveness of education from AI, looking at each and every student in the classroom and in the world for that sake, how they can have a tutor, have a teacher, and have a learning platform which both adapts to their learning style, to their level, to their preference of modality. Are you an audiovisual learner? You like to read? Do you like to have someone explain it to you? Do you want to be challenged more, less? What's your level? Where are you strong? Where are you weak? It's impossible in a classroom setting for a teacher to do that at scale, right? And AI can really do that, and I think we already have the tools necessary. So AI can really supercharge education around the world, especially in places where resources are fewer. I think the education effect of AI would be even better.
And it can tailor itself to each and every person's needs and preferences.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like one, let's say ChatGPT for instance.
Yes.
One ChatGPT, but let's say there's 20 different students. Right. It can go for each student's capability of learning. Yeah. And it can adjust itself. So I think your answer is really similar to what I think as well about how AI should be in education system.
Exactly, and adaptive testing that really adapts. You answer right to this question. Okay, I'll give you something tougher to try. Okay, answer right to this or wrong to this. And it adapts to every student so that they get challenged on what they need to study. So I think even things in the classroom, visual tools, computer vision using AI that looks at engagement levels. When a teacher does this, how do students engage? And when are they disengaged? Those questions as well can be picked up using AI tools in the classroom. So I think there's so much to do.
So would you say, with AI now, it's more about that you have to be responsible about your own learning, but compared to before, you were more dependent on maybe a teacher or like a tutor. But now you just have an online tutor like AI, and you can ask him any questions without having a fear of judgment, or you can get any solutions. So would you say now the problem is that people aren't responsible for the learning, or?
Well, I think schools still have a very important both mission and a function in society, because for as long as we can remember, the books taught at any university have been widely available at libraries around the world. So anyone could theoretically find what's the curriculum of a Harvard MBA education. Go and check out those books, find what's the reading list, read those books, find some kind of test. But how many people actually do that? Some maybe, but not that many. And of course there are the components, the in-classroom discussion, the teacher role itself and so forth. But I think it's very much someone holding you accountable to completing something and doing something. We're all people. So I think that part is important as well with the function of a school. Plus, of course, the social aspect and making sure you meet classmates, you build a network, and you challenge each other. You build, maybe student association functions which train you in actually working together and solving tasks and so forth. I think those things are still going to be meaningful and important, even with AI, of course. But in terms of the learning aspect, I think that will really push the bar for everyone to learn more.
So what do you think are some of the skills that people should now focus on so they can better adapt themselves to this new world where AI is like AI is the new commonality. How can they adapt and how can they survive this transition phase?
Yeah, I think you said it, adaptability. Right? Adapt, I think, is a key word. The pace of development, the pace of progress is going to continue to go faster and faster.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's been I don't think ever we've seen a time when development started moving slower than the previous era or decade, and that speed of change is just going to go faster over time. So as such, that means whatever study we do in our 20s is maybe not going to be exactly where we spend our career through the whole time, right? I think that's common knowledge. So building that adaptability, the nimble mindset of learning things all the time and understanding how can I use AI as a super tool to supercharge me as a person, as a professional, no matter what I do. I think that's an important factor in sort of determining who becomes successful, even with AI and job displacement and all of these things that are discussed right now. Being quick at learning new things, being adaptable, being able to understand where can I add value and what can AI do. Having those kind of mindset, I think, is super key. Plus things like criticizing sources and being, questioning where does this come from. I think being that kind of individual is also important.
But also, is there anything where you think that AI should really not replace human efforts or like human needs for the role? For instance, let's say hospitals. Do you think, personally, I think that in the future, there should be some things that humans should still do rather than AI, despite of how like perfect it even gets. Like hospitals, for example. Do you still agree on that, or do you still think that AI could still take over hospitals as well?
Yeah, good question. I don't think I have a lot of red lines where I think they should not take over this. I can totally see hospitals being run by autonomous robots and AI systems, doing things like everything from administration to logistics to even surgical robotic arms with higher precision than a doctor who might have been operating for 10 hours, and is, but human factor can influence the kind of outcome of that surgery. So I do think healthcare will benefit greatly from AI across the sector. Then I think we'll still have doctors, I hope, but I don't see any aspects where AI should not involve.
But what do you think about systematic errors that could come? Let's say if it's an operation, a really detailed operation that a robot performs with high precision, but there still could be small errors in the machine system. What do you think in that case would happen?
I don't think the change to happen overnight. So I think it needs to be a very careful transition, probably over years and decades, to have a full autonomy in the most sensitive sectors. So first of all, but I think if we fast track 20 years, 20 years after you graduate from this school, I do think we'll have full autonomy or close to full autonomy, even in surgical precision. I think that will allow more people to get surgery as well when they need to. So I think there are a lot of benefits, both the precision, the capacity utilization as well. So I think cars will be definitely automated autonomously. Any kind of vehicle like drones, flying manned drones and so forth. Healthcare for sure. Yeah, I think most fields.
Yeah, I think it's a very good thing because also one of the biggest hot topics about AI is that it's going to take over jobs.
Yeah.
A lot of graduates are worried that the degree that they're studying for might not exist in the future. So what's your take on it? Because a lot of people have different opinions. Some think that it's gonna replace jobs, while others think it's gonna eliminate jobs.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, good question, and it's one that I think about a lot. So I think first of all, there will surely be a faster progression of many industries as a result of AI, and I think that result is mainly positive for us as people. Then, depending on the speed of that transition, the job displacement, meaning certain roles will be affected quite quickly, and the people doing those jobs will have to quickly adopt the tools to do the job more productively. That's going to have some sort of disruption effect on certain categories of work. Then I think in reality, having seen many companies, the speed of change across many companies is not as fast as one might think. If we look at many big companies today, the way they use AI, if they use AI, is by adopting a Copilot solution or ChatGPT license and those things. That's sort of step one, base level. And that's still good. That's still good. It adds personal productivity benefits. But just the speed of change and adoption and change management in many, especially larger organizations, does take time. It takes years. And I think that adds a bit of slowness to the system, which also makes the change and adoption in each job category. Actually, this can work in parallel, so that because of the slowness of adopting new AI tools, it leads to people on the person side being able to change and adopt new ways of working, maybe rethink their career, maybe rethink how they work with AI tools. So it's not going to change overnight. If that was the case, I think there would be a bigger disruption to the system.
But would you say there are any target jobs that are at risk as AI grows? Because a lot of people say a lot of blue collar jobs might be in more demand. Do you think that's true, or?
I think so. Yeah, I think in the medium term, I think blue collar jobs would be more difficult to replace with robotics and physical AI than some of the white collar jobs and office type jobs. But I think those jobs will also change in how they operate. My job has changed, and I think most people around me have changed their jobs, and most people are quite excited about how that change has happened and what you can do now, the productivity you can have. I used to work as a consultant in McKinsey for a few years, which was right after Stockholm School of Economics. That was my first job. And I know that they utilize AI a lot now as a consultant, the kind of first couple of years, which is different. We didn't have that, when I was a consultant. So I think even that job is transitioning very fast using AI to analyze problems, to even build presentations and present things.
I think you kind of touched upon this before, that AI isn't growing at that rate that some people perceive it does. What do you think is the next big thing in the AI, that the next breaking news that AI is aiming for?
Yeah. In the beginning of this year, 2025, we saw NVIDIA's CEO Jensen outline the 3 phases of agentic or AI change. First, generative AI. Second, agentic AI, agents. And third, physical AI. I think we all envisioned that to take a few years to start adopting, but it's moved extremely fast just in this current year we're in. We've moved into the year of the agents, which is this year and maybe next year as well. And even physical AI is starting to come. Humanoids are starting to be widespread, at least available for ordering. So I think in just a couple of years, we're going to all have agents solving some of the pain points in our lives, both personally and professionally at work. Agents meaning software agents, doing things, doing several tasks to solve tasks. And I'm very excited about that. I think that's going to offload a lot of the more boring and laborious and tedious parts of everyone's job. So I think that's a fantastic transition. That's going to, revolutionize a lot of big parts of the work. Physical AI, of course, is going to be a fundamental shift when that starts hitting. Right? I don't know if you've been to San Francisco and taken the Waymo, robot taxi.
I haven't.
No, it's like science fiction when you do it, but then you do it a few times and it feels very normal. And I think we're going to see the same across many fields. Of course, a robot might open the door when you ring someone's doorbell, and all of a sudden that's going to feel quite normal in a few years.
Yeah.
And tidy up your home, or feed your dog, or even walk the kids to school if you want to. So I think it's going to move very fast.
Even the things that happen now in 2025, these things, prior to COVID, I could have never imagined. I could have never imagined something as ChatGPT, something that I'm writing and it writes a whole essay for me in seconds, or something cashless, or not cashless, staffless checkouts in supermarkets. I never thought that could be a thing as well. Because I always thought, what if people stole? Or even maybe because I was way younger that time, so I didn't think a lot. But also, whatever's happening now, it's something that we couldn't have imagined a few years back. So this could be the same for the future as well. Yeah,
for sure. But I think also the counter trend to that would be things that we do as humans, I think will also be valued higher in many ways. So, an essay written by hand, or an email, or a personalized letter. It's still nice to get a personalized handwritten letter, but in 5 years it's going to feel even more special to get that, because it's so easy to generate the opposite of that, or a hand-drawn painting, or whatever, So I think that's going to increase the value. Scarcity leads to higher value. So that's something we're going to see more. Someone who can really master the craft by hand, maybe augmented by or just humanly. That's going to be perceived more valuable.
So whatever that has more personality to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the standard would be the opposite,
Yeah.
AI generated.
That's way generic.
Yeah, that's right. But I think also questions, what do we want to spend our time on as people? Those questions become interesting and fundamental to ponder. And what hobbies, how do we spend our time in the best way? I think a lot of people today probably feel like they are in a very busy period between success at work, success at home, maybe personal fitness, family, kids, and so forth, and a fantastic career. And how do you balance all these things? You probably can't.
Yeah.
So I hope at least, and I think AI will allow us to, offload some of the things that we have to do today that we might not like, taking care of the home, grocery pick up into the fridge, doing laundry, doing all these things. Most people at least do that. It probably takes an hour or two. If we can free that up to do other things, spend time with the family, less stressful, I think that's amazing. Maybe practice a hobby. So those things I think is going to increase in terms of value as well.
I think it's a really good point. I think a lot of people don't understand that with AI you save a lot of time, and that time can be used in other initiatives.
Yes.
So I think it's a good reframe method to look at it. One thing I had to ask about was with AI, there's a lot of nowadays video creation and a lot of involvement in the art community. And well, a lot of people are kind of against it. They think it's destroying the creative expression and it's making it more monotone. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, on the arts, right?
On the art side, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in the creative community, whether it's music or we talk about painting and that kind of art, or writing for that sake. To me, I think it's important that we preserve the human element of that, to be honest. I'm active in the AI space, but I do think, as I said, I see the value of human created art, writing, singing, music, and so forth. That's very important. I think that's fundamental to us as people, that we preserve that. It's also bearer of culture and language and expression and so forth. So I'm conscientious, and I think we will preserve that because it's important. It's fun to do, and I do think the value of that will increase over time as a result of sort of AI being able to generate to some extent some of these things.
Also now a little bit of different from AI.
Yeah.
I really want to know about your experience in living in a few different countries, and you also speak a few different languages, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That would be really fun to hear as well.
Yeah, you want to hear the languages or hear about the
Both of them. everything.
Yeah, no, so I think that to me that's an important part of my life, and I think for hopefully for my kids and my family as well. So I lived in of course I'm born and raised in Sweden. I spent a year in the US before coming to this school, Stockholm School of Economics. I spent 1 year in a small city called Rock Island in Illinois, freshman year of college. And to me that was the first time living by myself far away from Sweden. But it was amazing, just the insights to the American culture itself, enabled by a scholarship from Sweden America Foundation, which sort of enables exchange students and made it possible for me to go abroad. And that led me to want to see new places. So when I was a student here at Stockholm School of Economics, I went to Nigeria to do an internship. I had that opportunity to work for the telecom operator, 2005, which was just fantastic and just mind-changing, mind-boggling. It was a great, very professionally run company at the time, MTN, telecoms operator. So I worked on the data services on their, 2.5G network and enabling new data services, but also got an insight into the West African culture where I was staying for a few months. I spent, more time in Nigeria later when I was at McKinsey because I wanted to come back. I wanted to, continue working in that part of the world, which I enjoyed a lot. So different from Sweden, so much energy, so much drive and forward orientation, so much laughter, and so much can-do spirit. It was incredible. And then a year later, I decided to go to China. Was also as an exchange student from this school, Stockholm School of Economics. I got that opportunity to do 1 semester abroad, and I wanted to see Asia, and I decided to go to China. And I came there, and I was hit like a brick wall by the culture shock. When I came in the fall of 2005. And China at that time, if you remember, started opening up. It was in the era of let's now, globalization and let's sort of build bridges with the rest of the world and do positive trade exchange and so forth. So that was very apparent, and China was really on its way up on the sort of 9-point-something% GDP growth per year. But I was hit by the culture shock, but I loved it. I decided to. I always love challenges, big challenges, and doing difficult things. I love swimming in the deep end of any pool as opposed to the shallow end. So when I came there, I didn't speak a single word of Chinese, but I decided, and why not? Why not, challenge myself and try to learn this language, which is very different from Swedish. So I found a tutor, and I used every chance I had in the taxis and with friends in school to speak Chinese. Even if I couldn't speak, I picked up words and put them together, and all of a sudden things started clicking slowly. Then I said, okay, I'm not done after this exchange semester. So I took another year and invested my own money to stay for a year and just learn Chinese in a local language school in Beijing. Very little contact with any foreigners, and that was also very difficult, but great. So it gave me a foundation of Chinese, both the characters and the spoken language. And after that, I worked in McKinsey, including some time in China. So all in all, I come to realize that cultural differences and cultural shocks to me is part of the meaning of my life, and I just love it. Whenever there's a different cultural aspect to life, whether it being food or the meaning of a Chinese character or the language or understanding why people do things in a different way, adds to understanding life and brings, I think, tolerance and understanding at a higher degree, which I think is fantastic, and just to understand the world in a better way. So since then I've worked in other countries in Europe as well. My wife that I met in China is from Italy, so my kids are half Italian, half Swedish. So multiculturalism is definitely part of my DNA in my life.
That's really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
So is there like a favorite culture that you had out of like the 4 or 5 countries you've lived in?
Very difficult question. Maybe the most difficult question in this podcast, but I like all of them in different ways. I enjoyed my time in the US so much, and I still enjoy the American culture. And I think I realized you don't have to like every part of country or culture to appreciate it. There's always a flip side to any place that we're in. Sweden, of course, as well. But I think you can also choose to appreciate the parts that you like in the American culture and in the Chinese culture or the West African culture or Italian, Swedish, and in that way the glass is half full. You kind of choose to focus on the positives. That's the way I choose to do it. Instead of black and white, I don't want to go to that place, I don't want to work with that place because there's an aspect here that I don't like. So that's how I see it. But I spent 8 years in China, so clearly that was an important, meaningful, and very exciting part of my life. I can't single out one country or culture that I like more than the others, to be honest. I appreciate all of them and the diversity of the cultures I had exposure to. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful to have been welcomed into many cultures over my life so far.
Exactly. You've been around a lot of different places. You spent 8 years in China.
Yeah.
I'm curious about what led to the formation of Redpine AI. You came back to Stockholm and you started your own company. Was it like a Yahoo moment that you had, or what happened?
Yeah, no, it's a good question when you look back. So, as an investor, as a venture capital investor, as I was, I saw many companies coming to us to pitch for an investment, And when AI really became more popular, and after ChatGPT in 2022, I started realizing when someone pitched a company in, let's say, recruitment, HR, or we get like media, technologies, advertising, tech, and AI was always a common denominator. Like they all use the same data more or less as an early stage company. And to me, having worked with data and analyzed data prior to that, I started, what's your moat? Moat means what's your differentiation and how can you be different if you're using the same data as other companies in this field. Of course, your team can be stronger, you can be quicker at executing. There can be things, right? But as long as the data is different, the product's going to be, with some design changes in UX, quite alike. So I always asked, what's your data? Have you thought about proprietary data? And I think many companies had thought about it, but haven't managed to unlock their own unique data. So I think that idea grew over the years that I was an investor. I said, what if we can build a proprietary layer of data and sort of access that to all the companies that needed that for AI training. That was the birthplace of the idea, and then started seeing, both the big deals between large AI labs as well as some of the biggest content providers in the world in 2024. That started happening, and also some lawsuits. New York Times sued some of the big AI companies as well for using the data in ways that they hadn't given permission to. So both the lawsuits as well as the big deals and the understanding that there is a lot of data outside the internet that could be unlocked, but it's quite difficult. That made me realize, it's a problem worth solving, to unlock that data and provide it in a smart way to AI builders.
Yeah. So how exactly do you unlock the data? Obviously, Redpine AI works with licensed data and high quality data.
Yeah.
But what exactly is the process? What is a normal day-to-day operations, or like a normal life in Redpine AI?
Yeah. As a young company, I think that's an advice to entrepreneurs that I learned as a VC. Doing things in the beginning, you need to learn how that works before you can start scaling it. You need to do things sometimes a bit more hands-on, a bit more manually than you do later when you're at bigger scale. So Y Combinator, big, famous investor in Silicon Valley, phrase to do things that don't scale. And that's how we currently are doing it. So we sit down with data owners. We sit down and meet with them, build the trust, and understand their pain points and their concerns. And then, make sure that they are comfortable to license data for the right type of AI use cases. Sometimes that also means explaining how AI works and how their data can benefit a positive use case and how that can bring meaningful revenue back to them. Once we do that in the right way, I think most data owners start focusing on the opportunity as opposed to, the downside or the concern. So that's what we do now. Over time, we're building in sort of automatic onboarding process where a data owner can automatically, connect to Redpine and upload data and connect to Redpine.
So what would you say is the biggest incentive for these data providers to work with Redpine AI? Because if you have a lawsuit, right, they do end up getting oftentimes they get a lot of money out of that. So what exactly is this incentive that outweighs the current benefits that they have?
Yeah, I think new revenue streams. So if you take companies with valuable data, they can decide to add a new revenue stream, basically a new income statement item, which is data licensing revenue, which most companies today don't. But I'm convinced that in a few years from now, many companies will, if they have valuable proprietary data, which is probably not their most core valuable IP, because then they should keep that as part of their holy grail. But there's oftentimes other type of data, which is not the most core and key IP, that can actually be licensed for AI, licensing revenue. And that's an insight that I think is starting to come to many companies we work with, but it's still early in this field. So financial incentives, I think is a good way to look at it. But it can also be, we talked about culture last time. So we're working with languages as well, language data in voice and in text, for example. And I think we all understand that AI needs to be fluent in all languages of this world, hundreds of languages. And then it can really benefit and harness the power of 8 billion people in this world, not just the top languages. So that's important. So I think some of the local players we work with in countries in low frequency languages, less frequent languages spoken, they also see the democratizing force of sharing some of that data for AI training, meaning that AI will be able to be fluent in their language, which will benefit the people in that place speaking that language.
I have a really personal question.
Sure.
Like something that I've always wondered.
Yeah.
Now that you have had Redpine AI for a while, and also the fact that you've worked with firms such as McKinsey, Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
So it's like two completely different roles. One of the things is you being a founder of your own company, and the other is working for a firm. Which one would you prefer, and do you think that one of them has more sources of learning, or do you prefer a 9-to-5 more than this? Because even as a founder, you will have to work way more than 9-to-5 sometimes. You have to work 70-80 hours a week. But also sometimes in the future, let's say your company booms up, So you barely work, and then you still get a lot of revenue. What do you think is like your favorite? Would you rather work in a company or have a own of your own?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I joined this school, the master program of Stockholm School of Economics, to be able to learn about business better, to be able to be a more successful entrepreneur. I had my company coming in, and I wanted to become a better leader of that company. That was my initial, reason for joining this school. Then when I was here, I got inspired by all the other companies that came and gave free lunch and free food and so forth. And we all know there's no such thing as free lunches. And all of a sudden, I was working over 100 hours in London for one of the banks at Goldman. So I think that story is just to show, I took a bit of a detour, and now, quite a few years later, starting a company again. So I think for me, there's no one right path towards the goal, no matter what the goal is. There can be multiple paths to get to that goal. And for me, I love the entrepreneurship aspect of building a company. I like the ability to shape the path together with your team. You set high targets and you work incredibly hard to reach those. And that's up to you. And if you don't, it's sort of up to you to be responsible for that. So for me, that's always been the case. And I always worked a lot, no matter what company I've been in. And I like to challenge myself and test myself, no matter if it's, running a marathon or learning Chinese or building a company or anything like that. I want to do things on a difficult mode. So I've never been appealed by, but I do respect, of course, the path of picking a 9-to-5 job and, check in at work, go home, check out and so forth. It's always been a mix. So no balance in the sense that there's a balance. That's been, and where does it come from, I'm not sure. But for me, that's always been the case. If I were to now look back and maybe provide a few words of advice, I think I would have probably continued building companies straight out of school if I were to look at that today. And today I see a lot of students are doing that at SSE, which is great and inspiring. When I was here, there were basically 3 paths after SSE. One was consulting, one was banking, and the third one was called other. And that was about 5%, which was usually FMCG companies, which was P&G, Unilever. Those were the 2. Then there were a few other categories, which is like starting a company. The Klarna founders were at the school at the same time as I, and they were sitting, I think, in this building somewhere. And they, of course, took that path and created a fantastic company. So that's very inspiring to see. If I were to redo it, I think I would continue building companies straight out of business school, because I think there's a benefit of just trying out, as you were saying, seeing what works, learning by doing, and hitting both success, hitting failures, and learning in the process. Keep improving your own compass.
Yeah, I think that's a very good message for the viewers.
Yeah.
Also, going back to Redpine AI, you have secured a lot of fundings. My question is, obviously, like when you start your own company, being invested by someone is a very big moment. How did that feel for your team? And with these investments, like where do you plan to see Redpine AI in the next 5 years? What's your vision for the company, and what are your aspirations?
Sure. So at this point in time, November 2025, we secured $1.4 million into the company, which can be seen as a lot, and I respect that, and I appreciate all the investors. It can also be seen as, compared to other companies, still early, right? And for us, we worked a year first without any salary, David, my co-founder, and myself, before deciding to fundraise for this company. And that's simply because we wanted to really know the path we're heading and look the investors in the eye and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to commit a good number of years of our life to do this, to solve this problem, and to give it our everything, And when we felt 100%, 110% convinced, then we said, okay, now we're going to do this. We're going to invest the time to make this work and do everything. Now we can also ask investors to join this journey with us. And, we knew the investors from previous work we've done, career and so forth, almost everyone. So I think that was a big moment that they, trusted their own personal money in many cases to invest in our company. And of course, we will work as hard as we can to make that their best investment ever. So how did it feel? I think for me, I respect people who invest in startup companies. I think it's important to have a good angel ecosystem, and as such, I'm very grateful to the investors. To be honest, we didn't celebrate the investment, not at all. We said, okay, now we have to work even harder, and we celebrate commercial success and not fundraising success, because I think that's the right way to do. However, the fundraising gives us the opportunity to bring in more people to the team and really go faster in what we're building. So the feeling was a sense of responsibility, of course, and it was a good sign that let's do this even faster and even better.
Now we have some really interesting questions by our listeners.
Okay.
We had a poll on Instagram where a lot of questions came for you.
Sure.
One of the questions that I love the most is, what is the biggest risk you've taken in your life?
Good question. So personal or professional? What do you think?
Any, just your own.
I think there's, you sometimes know looking back. I was in the harbor in Lagos, in Nigeria. We were at a small boat club on a Saturday morning, and we went out in the water. A colleague of mine and this boating instructor from Switzerland. We took a small boat out in the harbor in the water, and I realized when we were out on the boat that he had a little bit too much to drink that Saturday morning. So he wasn't really steering the boat, controlling the boat as well as he should. He was one of the leaders at that boat club. Yeah. So all of a sudden we started hearing this big sort of oil ship started honking the big horn, and they were about 200 meters away from us. And this guy, who was supposed to be the expert at boats, started really becoming scared and almost crying. And then when an expert becomes afraid and you see this oil tanker coming very fast towards you and start panicking the horn. I think that was a big risk, probably, looking back. It went well, and we just managed to get off the track, so to speak. But I think from a personal point of view, that was probably a big risk that I apparently was taking, looking back. From a career point of view, I think you take, at least for me, I've taken the risky road, left McKinsey to join education first in China, building an edtech. And some people say, why would you leave this track to join that company in China, less proven track and so forth. To me, that's never been my North Star to go less risky and less risky. I always wanted to take more risk. And now starting company as well, leaving venture capital company to start a startup that's also, you can say, career risk, and working without a salary for a long time and so forth. That's also a risk. But I think, in life is short no matter how you look at it and no matter what happens, and no risk, no reward, and vice versa. You take risk, you can get reward. So that's been, and I trust my own abilities, and I think we all should. And as long as we're open-minded and be ready to take any consequence out there, I think you have to take risk. I think it's more interesting that way.
I think it's a very motivating answer. Another question we had was, if you weren't in tech right now, or entrepreneurship, what other segment, or what other sector do you think you would be in, or what other sector you would like to have worked in?
Good question.
Hockey.
Ice hockey, yeah. Maybe at some point professional paddle player, which I'm not close to good enough to be. But yeah, no, I think you bring up a few points. Sports, I love sports still. And I think sports management, sports business, and the AI intersection of sports is a very interesting one. So maybe that's still AI, but let's call it sports then. I think education as well. I spent a long time there. I love education. I think it has such an important effect, and education is the fundament upon which things like climate change solutions, health tech solutions are built. People who are more educated tend to, and peace, tend to agree with each other more and work better together and take care of themselves better, their health, and the climate. So I think education is very important. I say that.
One final question we had was, as you mentioned, you mentioned before that a lot of people are now building their own startups.
Yeah.
In this AI age, what do you think matters the most when you're building your own AI company nowadays?
What success factor matters the most? Is that how you mean? Yeah. Yeah, I think no matter if it's AI or other companies, to speak to your clients and listen to your clients and customers very well, understanding the problem, Going full speed, being fast at iterating things is also very important. So I think the speed and listen to your customers is extremely important.
I think those were it from the listeners' question.
Yeah.
Now for the final round, we have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah.
So you have to just answer whatever comes in the top of your head.
Sure.
So do we alternate one and one?
We can go on, yeah.
Okay, I'll start. Coffee or tea?
Coffee, any day of the week, any time of the day.
LinkedIn or Gmail?
LinkedIn.
What's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear, the health of my kids, or the lack of health of my kids. They're healthy, but something would happen to my kids.
Okay. Scale fast or scale safe in terms of development?
Fast, scale fast.
What's your favorite cuisine?
Chinese cuisine, and that's many different cuisines. I'd say Sichuan and Xinjiang cuisine.
And one word that describes Redpine's future?
Prosperous and exciting.
Yeah, that's 2 words.
But I think that's it from our side.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you so
coming
much
on.
for...
My pleasure. Glad to be back here at the school, and great interview. And thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.